And today we have a great panel of speakers. We have Marcia from North Carolina, who's going to talk about the Environmental Stewardship Initiative in that state. And then we've got Robin from Kentucky talking about Kentucky Excels. I'll talk about Virginia's voluntary programs, and then we're going to have a panel session with some questions, and then we'll wrap up. I would like to highlight that the session is meant to be interactive, so at any point, feel free to send in some questions, raise your hand, and we can unmute you. We'd really like to hear from the audience, have your questions, as well as any input you have in the discussion section, particularly. So please participate with us in this webinar. And I'm going to introduce Laura. Laura is the National Pollution Prevention Roundtable's chair. So Laura, take it away.
Thank you, Megan, for organizing this session. I also want to say thank you to our presenters, Marcia and Robin, for taking the time to speak with everybody today, and to thank Lissa, who's been spearheading our P2U and is responsible for keeping it running. I appreciate everything you were doing. And I also want to say thank to everybody who made it to the call today. I hope it's going to be informative and interactive. The National Pollution Prevention Roundtable is the only national voice for pollution prevention. We have members around the country. We have members in Canada as well. And we offer many ways to network. We have work groups, quarterly newsletters, National Pollution Prevention Week, which is the third week in September every year. You can see our poster that was made for us this year by a young Canadian artist. And we also have our NPPR awards every year during Pollution Prevention Week, and our newest offering, P2U, Pollution Prevention University, and member networking sessions. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for letting me give us a little plug.
Thank you, Laura. And with that, I'd like to welcome Marcia. She's the section chief with North Carolina's DEQ, Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service, with oversight of permitting and small business assistance staff, DEQ's customer service line, and the department's environmental stewardship initiative. Welcome, Marcia.
Thank you. And if you'll just verify I did it correctly, you're seeing my screen?
I can see you, I can see your screen, and I can hear you. Great job.
Perfect. And thank you for inviting us to share about the Environmental Stewardship Initiative here in North Carolina. And just to give you guys a little background about where we sit. So we're within the Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service. We're a non-regulatory group within the Department of Environmental Quality. And so we actually report up to a different leadership within DEQ than our regulatory staff. So that sort of separates us from the rest of what we do in DEQ. I wanted to mention we also have a tourism-based leadership program. It's called NC Green Travel. And we can always speak about that at a later date, but we're just going to talk, or I'm just going to talk about our Environmental Stewardship Initiative. And I just wanted to put it in the context of two other programs that our division runs. That is the Waste Reduction Partners. That's about 20-year-old technical assistance going out, doing site visits, doing those energy, water, and waste audits, and any other assistance we can provide to both our members and other organizations within North Carolina. And then our office also has the state recycling group. So they offer assistance to the 600+ municipal programs within the state, but they also support recycling infrastructure. They give grants out. They help our members with identifying different vendors to help home those hard to find wastes. And then the three programs really together try to encourage efficiency, support recycling, and promote economic growth within the state. In ESI, we have 2 full-time staff. One of those is supported mostly through an EPA pollution prevention grant. The rest of our program is all state appropriations, and we have 4 other staff, and then myself, who support it. Those other 4 staff and the 2 full-time staff, they act as coaches for our members. And next year in 2022, we'll be celebrating 20 years. So that will be, it's very exciting. We're planning a bunch of special events and maybe a story map for our program and some other things. And really, we manage the program for the DEQ Secretary, whoever that is, and they get to say, they have the final say about who becomes a member and what benefits that we offer. Okay, so ESI is all about that peer-to-peer promotion of environmental excellence. We recognize our members for how long they've been in the program and the different levels. It's all free to them, and it's voluntary. And as I said, we've funded through that P2 grant part of it. We started in 2002, we had 28 members, and as of this year, we have 96 members at 109 sites, and I'll explain how that works in just a minute. I just wanted to point out, I know we're going to talk about this later, up on the screen is one of the main ways that we promote our program and get the word out. We call them one-pagers here in DEQ, and we have them for all of our different programs. And it highlights the benefits that we offer, but also the different levels within the program and our accomplishments. But what we offer to folks when they join up is they get a coach. They get assigned someone that will be doing the review of their annual report, that will keep up with them. We like to do site visits, monitor what goals they have, you know, compare what different members are doing, see how we can pair them up if they've got something in common. And the coach is really the lead person on that technical and compliance assistance that we give to them. We offer an electronic newsletter that comes out every other month that highlights new members, highlights things that the program has done. We market our events through there and just try and promote the things that our members are doing. You know, if they've gotten awards, or if they've had some new initiative that they've partnered with a community on. One of our newer members, they partner with a local watershed group, and so we highlighted that in one of our recent newsletters. We also host an ESI member listserv, and that's accessible by our members, but also those other 2 groups within our division, those waste reduction and our recycling. So we all, if we see something that we think members might be interested, we'll send it out to the listserv. We also invite our members to submit questions. They can either submit it directly to us or they can submit it to the whole group. A lot of times folks will ask for, you know, what are you doing regarding X, Y, and Z, and we'll get answers. Or sometimes they'll ask compliance questions and we'll send that off to our regulatory side of the house and get an answer, strip all of the identifying information off, and then share it with everybody via the listserv. We also have member marketing. So if you're not a member to our organization, you can still get invited to our events. And so we keep a separate list of those folks. Some of them were members at one time. Some of them are just folks that enjoy the offerings that we give. And so we do offer that to folks that aren't members. One of the big things we like to do is offer networking opportunities. So whether that's through our annual conference that we give, through webinars, we had to shut it down during the pandemic, but we do something called an environmental benchmarking series where one of our members will host, talk about either a particular project or, you know, their whole environmental stewardship or sustainability program, give us a tour. And those are great opportunities, not only to see the environmental things, but we did one right before the pandemic, and it was hosted at a facility, and one of our other members came and they were actually looking to implement a safety feature, and this facility had installed it. So they were able to do a hands-on with that safety feature So it's really a great way for our members to network and learn from each other. One of the other things that we do regarding mentorship is that once you reach our highest level, our stewards, they're required to mentor other members. So one of the newer connections we made, we had an industrial facility that was having issues. They had a sanitary sewer collection system on their site, and they had 6 different pump stations, and so they were having some issues with hydrogen sulfide and eating out their infrastructure. And so we connected them with one of our municipal water wastewater members, and they were able to share some of the management strategies that they use so that that gas doesn't eat away at their infrastructure as aggressively. We also offer training, and our big training that we give is on environmental management systems, ISO 14001. This year, because a lot of our members have energy goals, we gave an overview class of the 50001 standard. But really, it's based on what our members want to see. And one of the ways we get those ideas is through that annual report that we require. And one of the last things I wanted to highlight was our Stewart Form. So those members that are up at that highest level, once a year they get to meet and interact with the Deq Secretary. And within the last 2 years, we've also incorporated the division directors for our regulatory programs. So probably 2 years ago, maybe 3, they offer up suggestions about what different benefits we may be able to offer them or how we could do things differently. So one of the things we explored, or they asked to explore, was whether they could have announced inspections. And so rather than having us go back to our regulatory folks, we've included the regulatory folks now in those sessions, and it's worked out really well. And just really quick, these are the different levels in our program. So everyone can either come in as a partner and move up the levels, or they can apply at one of those higher levels. And while we're going through the review process, we bring them in as a partner. And our basic bar is not to be under criminal indictment or conviction, that they agree to report annually on their goals and their compliance if they have any permits. And then to establish those goals if they haven't done that already. And then as you move up in the program, you have to implement environmental management system. If they're not third-party certified, we will go out and do what we call a functional equivalent. But those higher 2 levels is about going beyond compliance, setting long-term goals. When you're at the highest level, they need to be aggressive, integrating your EMS and your core business function, which is now a requirement of the ISO standard. Our stewards have to communicate with their local community, and as I noted, they have to mentor other members. And I just highlighted some different ways that we recognize our members. So this is our application process. So applications at the partner level were accepted all throughout the year. We have an internal working group made up of those main regulatory divisions and our division, and we do that internal review for that compliance. Once they pass that, the suggestion to bring them onto the program goes directly to the Secretary's office, and they make that decision. Otherwise, if they're applying for a higher level, or if they're going through renewal, we renew our members every 5 years. We verify that they still have that third-party certified EMS, or we do that functional equivalent, and then we go out and do a site visit. Those site visits, the reports and the presentations are made to our advisory board. We have a 15-member, up to a 15-member advisory board, and you'll see the makeup over there. One of the interesting things is that industrial trade group. They really give us great feedback on what they're hearing from their members. Recently, during the pandemic, or not the pandemic, during our advisory board, they mentioned that they're seeing a lot more companies going for that ESG reporting. So maybe that's something that we'll implement going forward. So I just want to give you some statistics. We do a program annual report every year, so you'll see how our membership has grown over the last 19 years. In the very beginning, we did not have that rising steward level, that middle level. So we added that in 2004. In 2012, originally with our program, you had to have a DEQ permit to join. In 2012, we removed that requirement for partners, and then in 2015, we removed that for our higher levels. And it's about, you know, going beyond compliance to ensure that you don't need a permit. And then the other thing I just highlight is the size of the organizations that are our members. And then just talking about the goals. So the numbers change slightly every year. So these are for 2020. In 2019, we had 75 goals that were around energy, but it seems to be that energy is top, then water, and then waste, and then some other different kinds of goals. You know, we've seen the zero waste to landfill be a popular one, even with the challenges to the recycling markets lately. Greenhouse gas initiatives. We have quite a few of our members that are doing habitat or wildlife improvement. And then one of the things we also collect, but it's not required, is the cost savings that they have achieved from implementing their goals. And because it's not required, not everyone reports. So you'll see in a slide or two some numbers about cost savings, but that's not all of our members. So it's just amazing, really, the amount of money that our members are saving by implementing these goals and how they can put that back into their operations. And one of the things we do in our annual report is try and translate the numbers into things that are easily recognized for folks. So whether that's translating the amount of money that's saved into, you know, how many additional jobs can be created by the money that they saved, or that staggering number about 58,000 average size swimming pools were saved in 2020 by the amount of water that our members saved. So just some fun things like that. And then I believe this is my last slide. So every year we do the summary of the reported results, and you'll see, yes, that number is real. That was 1.29 billion gallons of water. We have a couple members, especially our food processors. Bacon was very popular during the pandemic, so I know part of that number is from one of our food processors that manufactures bacon. So just every year summarizing those numbers, so that what was reported, over $7 million last year. And then on the left, as part of that marketing piece, we summarize our numbers, and I don't believe our 2020 numbers are in here yet, but these are since our program has been around. So $95 million were saved on projects, 3,200 tons of hazardous waste were reduced, 14 billion gallons of water were saved, and over 1 million tons of recycled materials were collected. Okay, and then this is just our contact information. So hopefully I have filled my time appropriately.
That was perfect, Marcia. Your timing was on point and it was very informative. I know I was taking some notes. So thank you very much for sharing that information.
You're welcome.
I'm going to introduce Robin now. Robin, would you be able to take the controls and share your screen? Robin is a pollution prevention specialist and the coordinator of the Kentucky Excellence in Environmental Leadership.
All right, can you verify you see everything?
I can see everything. It looks good,
Except
Robin.
for me.
Except for you.
Let me show me too.
There we go.
All right, thank you all for joining. Yes, I am the program coordinator for Kentucky Excellence in Environmental Leadership. From here on out, you'll hear that referred to as Kentucky Excel. I work in the Department for Environmental Protection here in Kentucky. For those of you that are curious, this is kind of how we used to be organized. Kentucky Excel is housed in the Cabinet for Energy and Environment, which then breaks down to different departments. So we're in the Department for Environmental Protection. And before November 1st, we had 5 different divisions that were public facing. So we had our 3 single media regulatory divisions, Division for Air Quality, Division of Waste Management, and Division of Water. And then we had 2 multimedia divisions, Division of Enforcement and Division of Compliance Assistance. Kentucky Excel was housed in the Division of Compliance Assistance. Along with Kentucky Excel, we also have the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program, which here in Kentucky we refer to as the Environmental Compliance Assistance Program, ECAP. We also have the grants and outreach portion of the Brownfields program. We also certify all the drinking water, wastewater, landfill operators, and composting operators throughout the state. As of November 1st, though, we have been merged with the Division of Enforcement. We are currently called Division of Enforcement and Compliance Assistance. The objectives of Kentucky Excel is to facilitate environmental leadership. And when I say environmental leadership, that's being in compliance and going beyond that. We do a circular economy approach with an emphasis on pollution prevention. We also recognize environmental leaders throughout the Commonwealth. One way that we do that is through events. As you can see here are photos of previous workshops. We've done things like community environmental outreach, solar energy, and even citizen science. With COVID, we've of course had to transition our workshops and our field trips and roundtables to more of a virtual webinar basis. We also develop a variety of tools, including B&P guides. We have a monthly newsletter called Green Moments, infographics, fact sheets, and we even do a little bit of video work. We also provide, pre-COVID times, one-on-one site visits where we can come out and talk to a facility or location about how to improve their environmental leadership and just give them ideas. We also manage the department's Environmental Excellence Awards. These are presented based on public nominations. There are 4 different categories. We have the Environmental Pacesetter, Community Environmental Luminary, Resource Caretaker, and the Kentucky Excel Champion. These awards are presented normally with the annual Governor's Conference for Energy and Environment. Now, Kentucky Excel as a member program started in 2006. We are completely free, and the core element of Kentucky Excel is to encourage its members to complete voluntary projects that improve the environment. And when I say voluntary, what I mean is it's not required by law or regulation. We have a variety of different membership types. For those that are regulated by the department, there's a tiered approach. The highest level is a master. So a master requires 5 projects per year, one of which has to be outreach or education in nature. They have to pass a 3-year compliance history check, have an established environmental management plan. So they're ISO 14000 certified. That counts for that and also for the next requirement, which is a third-party performance assessment. The tier after that is a leader. So that's 3 projects per year. Within their first year as being a leader, they have to implement an environmental management plan and then do a self-initiated performance assessment. For partners, it's 1 project per year. Develop an environmental management plan within their first year of membership and do, once again, a self-initiated performance assessment. We also have membership types for those that are not regulated by the department. So one is an advocate. All they have to do is 1 project per year. And then another is farm members. That's 1 project per year that has to be 5 acres or more, and they have to raise crops or critters. When I say environmental projects, and as you can see, it's definitely the core element of all of our membership levels. They can tailor, the members can tailor the projects to meet their situations and their interests. It has to positively impact the environment, and it must be, like I said, voluntary. They also must report on each project 1 year after the project was approved. And a lot of what I do is actually help people come up with project ideas. One of the biggest benefit of being a Kentucky Excel member is actually recognition. They get to use the Kentucky Excel logo. We have a list of the members available online for people to peruse. We also have the department awards specifically for the Kentucky Excellent Champions. So you have to be a member of Kentucky Excel to be nominated for that award. We also have program-specific awards, which we refer to as Beacon Awards. And those are presented to members every year at an annual event called the Kentucky Excel-Celebration. This year, we had to tweak it a bit and do a little virtually. So here's actually a screen capture of the video that we did to recognize and present the awards this year at the Excel-Celebration. There are 5 different award categories. So that's conservation, environmental education, performance improvement, pollution prevention, waste reduction, and restoration. And the awards are actually based off of the project reports that the members submit. They're selected from those. Now we are actually tweaking the membership levels. Starting in 2022, we will just have 3 levels. And we're not separating them based off of entities that are regulated by the department and people that are not regulated by the department. So as you can see here, it's a very simple bronze, silver, gold. Every membership level has its own logo, and every year that they are a member, they will get like the gold. It'll say gold 2022. If they renew next year, because our membership is annual, they'll get another one, gold 2023. For the gold members, which is the top tier, they have to do 5 or more voluntary environmental goals. We're transitioning to goals instead of projects, one of which still has to be outreach and education in nature. They still have to pass the 3-year compliance history check. We have adjusted to an annual environmental leadership self-assessment. So it is an actual scorecard in which we've developed, and they can take themselves and they'll get a score. Highest that they can get is 100. So anyone that gets above 75 is qualified to be a gold member. They also have to have an implemented environmental management plan and pledge to mentor others. For the silver level, it's 3 voluntary environmental goals per year, and also, once again, the self-assessment, scoring 50 or higher, and have a developed environmental management plan. For the bronze, it's 1 goal per year, and they just have to complete the environmental assessment. They do not have to have a certain goal, grade, or score on the environmental leadership and self-assessment. One way that we kind of focus on certain sectors is actually doing different initiatives. One of our most popular initiatives is our Kentucky Sustainable Spirits Initiatives. Other initiatives that we've done include green lodging. Actually, we did one on horse racing a couple of years ago. So we kind of change these up from year to year. This initiative, the Sustainable Spirits one, is our longest lasting initiative. This one started in 2011, and it was a combination of the Division of Compliance Assistance and the Kentucky Distillers Association coming together and collaborating to create what we call the Sustainable Spirits Summit. And we've hosted these multiple years in a row where we bring all the distillers together so that they can talk about environmental issues and even ways to improve sustainability within the industry. Outside of the summit, we've done sector-specific workshops, like you can see here. This workshop was held at Goodwood Brewing back in 2019. And then we also do sector-specific resources for the initiatives as we do come across them. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me. I am the only staff member for Kentucky Excel. So I cannot do this without pretty much everyone in the Division of Compliance Assistance, now DECA, Division of Enforcement and Compliance Assistance, multiple people within both our cabinet, other state agencies, and local government, nonprofits, universities, and the members themselves. Thank you, guys.
Wow, Robin, thank you for that. That's incredible that you are the only person doing all of that. All right, I am going to share my screen now and talk about Virginia's programs. Let me see, can everyone see me and my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, as I said before, I'm Megan Quinn. I'm with the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, and I'm going to talk about the programs that the Office of Pollution Prevention runs. They're mainly non-regulatory programs who offer technical assistance in web-based formats, as well as training and workshops and public recognition. I wanted to talk a little bit about where we're structured within DEQ. So we are part of the Division of Administration and Environmental Enhancement. It's a little separate from our Division of Policy or Operations, which includes all of our regional offices, as well as enforcement and central operations. And then we've got the boards and citizen advisory groups that work with DEQ, but we are in our own division. Also in our division is the Coastal Zone Management Program, which is led by DEQ, but it's actually a network of agencies and the Office of Environmental Impact Review and Long Range Planning. And then there's P2. I don't think I need to explain P2 to this audience, but I did want to include this slide anyway, because our office has been around for decades. Over time, the programs that we work on have changed. So I've kind of put below the line there some programs that historically we have been involved with, but aren't particularly active right now. And, you know, we kind of change what we focus on based on what's happening in the world. And I'm going to talk a lot about the Virginia Environmental Excellence Program today, and I'll touch on the Governor's Awards, Virginia Green. And then we actually run our internal environmental management system for the agency out of our office. I wanted to mention that. So we actually participate in the EMS program, the voluntary program, as the agency. And you'll notice that this last block on the end is not nearly as pretty as any of the other logos because it's not actually a logo. But we have spent a lot of time this year working on an executive order that was signed in March. EO 77, Virginia leading by example to reduce plastic pollution and solid waste. And we're in the process of kind of changing the name over because we have a change in administration coming up. And the new governor will have his own executive order 77 at some point. But the amount of work that we have spent on this initiative over the past year, I could not do a presentation and not talk about it. So we've been working with other state agencies. It's specific to state agencies, universities, and their concessionaires, trying to phase out the use of single-use plastics. There are some very specific deadlines for phasing out disposable bags, food service items, straws, cutlery, and single-use water bottles, and then other single-use items will be phased out over time. There's also a part of the executive order that focuses on waste reduction in general. And that, as I mentioned, that's specific to state agencies. We also have the Governor's Environmental Excellence Awards that are run out of our office in partnership with our Department of Conservation and Recreation. We have 5 categories of awards: Sustainability Program, Environmental Project, Land Conservation, Virginia Outdoors Plan, and a Commonwealth application that is related to the executive order and recognizing agencies and universities that have gone above and beyond in implementing that. The Governor's Awards are open to everyone. BEAT members are encouraged to apply, but it's open to anyone who'd like to apply. We have a panel of judges who meet annually to decide who the winners are going to be. And we receive lots of applications from nonprofits, manufacturers, small business, government, across the board. We also work with the Virginia Green Program, which is our program for the tourism industry in Virginia. It's a partnership between the Virginia Green Travel Alliance, which is a nonprofit that started about 5 years ago, Virginia is for Lovers, which is the Virginia Tourism Corporation, the DEQ, our state parks program, and then the industry group for restaurants, lodging, and travel. The program was free up until I think about a year and a half ago when the Virginia Travel Alliance took over the membership. We still, as DEQ, set the standard for what it requires to be a member in Virginia Green, but the nonprofit now goes through and actually does the processing of the applications. And then we've got our VEEP program, the Virginia Environmental Excellence Program. We have 2 ways to participate in this program: the Sustainability Partners, which started about 10 years ago, and then the EMS track, which started a little over 20 years ago. And the EMS track is facility-based and it's tiered. It starts at E2 and goes up to E4. And then the Sustainability Partners, which does not require an environmental management system, is an organization-wide program. So it's something that, say, a county was going to join, the county as a whole would join the Sustainability Partners. They could still have different organizations within the county, say the landfill or the wastewater treatment plant, join the EMS program as a facility. But the idea of the Sustainability Partners is that it captures what the organization is doing as a whole. So it's looking to recognize organizations that have a culture of sustainability, that are looking to involve their community, and we're looking for measurable reductions. There's no site visit involved with the Sustainability Partners, as there are with some levels of the EMS track. And it provides public recognition, but no regulatory incentives. So our environmental management system track for VEEP was started, I think, in 2000 and codified in 2005. We've got over 350 participants. We have more E3 members than we have E2 members, which it hadn't always been that way. And that was something that was exciting for us to see our members develop their environmental management systems. We've got a little over 20% of our members are at the highest level, E4, and I'll go over what the E2, E3, and E4 requirements are. We also have almost 250,000 employees in the state of Virginia that work for facilities that are members of VEEP, and you can see the sectors broken down what types of members we have. We have a lot of local governments who participate in the program. We have manufacturers and commercial facilities as well. So one of the things that all of our VEEP EMS track members have to do is have a sustained record of compliance. There are a lot of words on this slide, but since it's the regulatory definition, I don't want to mess with it. But what we're really looking for is they can have no criminal violations within the last 5 years, no more than 2 significant environmental violations within the previous 3 years, and what counts as a significant violation does kind of change media to media. This isn't something that the pollution prevention staff evaluates. We get a lot of help from our enforcement folks as well as the regional folks and different members of DEQ to help us identify what's significant, what's not significant, and if there are any environmental violations. And we're also looking to make sure that there's no unresolved notices of violation or potential violations. And what that means is if there was just an inspection and we don't know what's going to come out of it yet, we'll wait before we move forward on the application. That's also relevant if there was an EPA inspection. We would wait until we found out the results of that inspection. That doesn't mean that if there had an issue and they now have a consent order, if they were in compliance with the consent order, that would be okay. And then the last one is just if there's anything else, that's not one we rely on often. I can't remember when we've had to do that, but there's a catch-all in there. And then this is what we're looking for as far as their actual environmental management system. So our E2 facilities are in the process of developing an environmental management system. They have the policy statement, they've gone through their impacts and aspects, they've looked for targets and objectives, and they have a pollution prevention program. Our E3 level builds on the E2, and it takes all the elements of the E2 and it adds a lot of the what really brings it into a management system in my mind, where it kind of links to everything that an organization is doing to make sure that they're complying with their legal requirements, to make sure they're identifying who's doing what, their record keeping, their training, all of those other elements of just management are pulled in. And then our E4 members have to have all of the things that the E2 and E3 members have, but they also have to have a third-party audit and a commitment to sustainability and community involvement. So the third-party audit doesn't have to be an ISO audit. It could be an audit to the deep standards. It could be just an internal audit to make sure, or excuse me, it could be an external audit to make sure that they're in compliance with their environmental management system, but it has to be someone external to the agency, external to the organization that's applying, who has been trained in EMS auditing. I wanted to go over a little bit of the application process work. So prior to applying, a potential member would determine what level they wanted to apply for, E2, E3, E4. They also have the ability to come to us and meet with us. We can go to them if that's what they want. We could talk to them. They could send us their documents online, whatever works best for them. But we give them the opportunity to kind of look at what they have and identify any gaps before the application process. That makes some of the members really appreciate that, because they want to, when they go to get the application signed to submit it, they want to know that it's all in order. Those are things that after we got the application, it's not just like a yes or no. If we see gaps, we'd ask for them. But it does make some people more comfortable before applying, that we'll go over and review what the status of an environmental management system at their facility. As far as the application process goes, the Office of Pollution Prevention reviews the environmental management system and the pollution prevention plan that was submitted, and then we do a review of the compliance history. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that section in a minute. And then when they become members, they have annual reporting, which, depending on the level that they are in the program, E2s have to report on one environmental commitment, E3s report on 2, E4s report on 3. And that's in addition to some other just general questions that we ask in the annual report. And then there's permit fee discounts that they receive. And our renewal process happens every 3 years. So after being a member for 3 years, we review the EMS and the compliance history again. So for our review of the environmental management system, which the Office of Pollution Prevention does, we do a primary review of the application to make sure that all the pieces of the environmental management system are there. As I mentioned, if there are any gaps, we'll follow up with them and ask. For the E3 and E4 levels, we do a site visit, and then we'll have a secondary review of the application. While that's happening, we also do the compliance check, review the compliance history to make sure that the facility meets the definition of sustained compliance that I had gone over earlier. I mentioned that the Office of Pollution Prevention doesn't do that. It is, we ask for feedback from our regional offices, from enforcement, from finance, to make sure that they're in line with that definition. And then once those things are both approved, they'll move on to becoming members. There is an extra step for our E4s. They need to be reviewed by DEQ's leadership team in order to be approved. And for our annual reporting, it's I didn't have a real neat picture of our MyDEQ portal, but it's something new to our agency. We've used the portal the last 2 years. We were one of the first 2 groups within the agency to be part of the MyDEQ portal. I think some other states have had them for a while, but it's new to us, and it's great for our members to get exposure to the portal because it's the type of thing that more media will be moving into as for other reporting requirements and permit renewals. So they'll be a little familiar with the portal before they get there. And the data collection system has been really helpful. It's also linked to our internal database, so which is called KEDS, which you see there. But it brings up the facilities that we have associated with that membership. It shows what permits are associated with that membership, if there's any permits that are not captured within our internal system, what permits they are. And then there's other tabs for submitting the environmental commitments and some additional questions that we ask for narrative reasons. So our environmental commitments are looking for quantitative data, and we ask that members report on the same commitments for a period of 3 years, which lines up with the renewal process. So the first year they would need 2 years of data. They need the reporting year, which would have been the previous year plus the year before that, which will serve as their baseline year. And then for the next 3 years, we'll compare what they've reported to that baseline year. And then the additional information tab asks questions about if they've had any compliance issues, if they, what they've done to develop their environmental management system over the past year. And there are a few other questions in there. And I think we're going to talk about this a little more later, but the benefits of joining the program are we have annual permit fee discounts for hazardous waste, solid waste, and some of our water permits. There is the option to request alternative compliance methods, and you can request a single point of contact within DEQ so that you have one person that you can bring all of your questions to. We also provide recognition. We provide the use of our logo. We hand out flags. We have certificates that we hand out. We do beep ceremonies, we call them, when a facility gets into the program or moves up a level. We will come to their facility and participate in a ceremony, and how that works changes from facility to facility. This is an example of 3 different ceremonies here. One had hosted an outdoor event for everyone at their plant. The one at the bottom is a local government who had asked for the presentation to be done in front of their board of supervisors. So it's really flexible based on what works best for the member. Some of the other benefits are the single point of contact, collaboration with other BEAT members, and support from DEQ. This is one of the things that I wanted to mention. I don't always talk about this in external meetings, but when we talk about BEAT internally, there are sometimes people, sometimes our staff, these are questions that we've gotten internally from our staff. Are they able to reach out to BEAT members, or do they have to go through the single point of contact? No, as a DEQ staff member, if you have a question for a BEAT member, you can go right to them. I know this is something that Marcia had mentioned earlier. We do not offer our BEAT members advance notice of inspections, but those are just some things that I think historically there had been some confusion about. I thought it would be good to clarify them. So why are people interested in joining our programs beyond the incentives? The environmental management systems help mitigate risks. They enhance efficiency. I think you guys are a group who are probably familiar with a lot of these reasons, so I won't spend a ton of time on them. But it's also very easy to find all of these articles that are highlighting some of our members in positive ways, which as environmental staff is not always something generally when you see something in the paper, it's not seeing the praises of the environmental staff. So it helps them get some good publicity, and it's good for public relations, but it's also a benefit to the Commonwealth as well. We're encouraging improved compliance. We're encouraging improved relationships with these facilities. The recognition provides some of that, as well as the ability to share information on environmental management, share what works, what doesn't work. So it helps the Commonwealth as well. And that was all I had. And I will bring up our discussion tab. And I'd ask the other speakers to join me, and we'll move on to the panel session. And I just want to remind everyone who is attending, please feel free to ask questions. Raise your hand if you want to be unmuted. We'd love to hear from you. And feel free to join in the discussion. If you have programs, you have answers to these questions as well, and we could all benefit from hearing those. So our first question is on promotion and recruiting, and we'll talk. So how do you promote your programs to recruit new members? Has COVID affected your recruiting strategy? And please, as the audience, feel free to jump in. So Marcia or Robin, do you have?
We'll keep the order. I'll go first.
Okay.
So I spoke to some of the things we do. So we have that one pager that's continually updated every year. We have our annual report. Some of our promotion changes with the DEQ Secretary. So we just had a change over in our secretary, and as part of her confirmation process, she's been taking our annual report as she meets with legislatures, with the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce, and with other groups, and promoting ESI herself. Current EPA Secretary Regan, he was our secretary prior to Secretary Beiser. So he actually had issued a challenge to our ESI members to have them bring more members in. And that is one way that we do get some new members. We've seen a lot of changeover in our contacts at our sites. So as our contacts change sites, they go and they bring those new sites into our program. With our higher two levels being EMS based, hopefully that they have that system in place that ensures that they can still meet the requirements of the program. But I think, as you guys probably see, if there's changes at a facility, sometimes, especially plant management, a lot of our members are, industry. Their support for the program may change. So we have seen, because we were looking back, it's our 20th anniversary. Let's see, if we had 28, I think we only have 5 members that are still with us that were originally with us 20 years ago. So we do have some turnover. When I first took my position, I did an analysis, and our average stay with the program is about 5 years for those that have left. But back to the promotion piece, we have that marketing list that we send, invite folks to, hoping that they'll join. The other thing is we do a call for applications twice a year for folks. Hopefully they're gonna be interested, if they've joined us or they're participating. We actually have, Megan, we've gotten a couple folks that are members of your program that one was a construction company. They had an office here, but unfortunately when they closed that, we said, well, you don't have a facility in North Carolina, so you can't be part of our program anymore. Probably with everyone else, a lot of our in-person things that went virtual. And One of the other ways we would promote ourselves was going to workshops and conferences, so that the North Carolina Manufacturers Association, they have workshops. We're invited to those. They're focused mainly on our regulatory programs. And then they have an environmental energy and environment and health school once a year. So we always usually had a booth there. We tried to do that virtually. That wasn't too much of a success. We're invited to North Carolina's Department of Labor is delegated from OSHA, so they have a STAR program. So it's very similar to us, but on the safety side. We would always go to their conference. Some of the local conferences for risk management or anything else that we get invited to. And if I've forgotten anything, I know Angela, Dawn, and Davey are on, so you guys can raise your hands if there's something I forgot about. Promotion and recruiting.
So Megan, we have a couple questions for the panelists.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. The first is for Robin. Did Kentucky successfully implement a ban on single-use plastics this past year?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. For Marcia, what were some of the challenges the program faced during initial implementation? How about today?
So that's a really good question. None of the staff that are here today were involved in those early days, and I don't know if Angela wants to raise her hand and provide some comments. You know, our program is based on after you're in a year, that's when you start reporting. So that's why you saw a lag in our numbers. A lot of our initial members were state parks. We had a couple military installations. Back in 2002, those were early days from an EMS standpoint. So I would think that there were some challenges there. I think that's one of the reasons why we're so heavily involved in educating on EMS, is to get those folks up to speed. Challenges now. We've actually had a pretty stable staff, except for our one position that is funded by our pollution prevention grant. So we're always seeing turnover in that about every 2 or 3 years. So getting that position up to speed, we've asked for state appropriations for that position, and we haven't been too successful. Another challenge is, as the EPA pollution prevention grant changes, that sort of changes our focus. And so we have 2 drivers to our program: the focus to meet our P2 grants, and then the focus of meeting the things that our members say they are interested in, want to learn more about, or want more training in.
We see that as well, kind of the 2 different polls, where there's what, our state and our secretary is pushing, and then what we're doing for our EPA grant. Robin, did you have anything to add on promotion and recruitment?
The way we promote ourselves is very similar to what Marcia said. Instead of one-pagers, we call them dashboards. We also do the annual report. We also work with our cabinet's communication team to do blogs and social media posts about the program, and also about our members to help recognize them. We primarily, pre-COVID, our biggest recruitment opportunities were the events we held. The Kentucky Excel Open House was held every year in June, and June was considered like our recruitment month. And the open house was quite literally where we threw open our doors as a department. So every division had booths about what they did, even on regulatory programs like Watershed Watch here in Kentucky. In our recycling and local assistance branch, which is in the Division of Waste Management, they always talk about what they were doing. We would also invite the members to hold booths and to present on what they were doing. And that was always very well received. We had people throughout our entire building come and learn from the members And then the members also learned from the public as they came in, and then through the people in the department, and actually through the cabinet, because we'd have the Office of Energy Policy have a booth and do presentations, the Office of State Nature Preserves, and even the Public Service Commission would come in and talk. So that's something hard to replicate virtually. We tried, the attendance was about the same, but the vibe isn't the same. So one of the things with COVID that I'm hoping will help actually recruitment is redoing the membership levels. We've really analyzed that because the membership levels really confused the way they were previously structured, confused people. They weren't sure what it meant by being regulated by the department. We are a circular economy. So we have households that are members. We have school teachers that are members. So a school could be regulated, but the teacher itself was not. And those people that were not regulated by the department, they actually wanted to be able to climb instead of just being stuck as an advocate member. So doing the bronze, silver, gold, I think will help with that. And even in a household can develop an environmental management plan. And the check sheet is designed so that anyone can do it. As things progress, we will eventually develop examples of like a household environmental management plan, or even develop a sector specific check sheet. Another thing that we do is our partners. We have a lot of partners. One exactly is LISA, Kentucky Pollution Prevention Center. We hold in partnership the Pollution Prevention Grant. So we help promote, when I say we, Kentucky Excel, we help promote the services that the Kentucky Pollution Prevention Center does here. And then the Kentucky Pollution Prevention Center actually helps recruit Kentucky Excel members. So very similar, but just a little bit different than what Marcia does.
The open houses that you mentioned, are they always in the same location, or are they, so they're always in your like central office?
They are in what we call our central office in Frankfurt. We have a very large training room. It's actually designed so that it's such a big room, you can divide it into 3 rooms. It's got dividers. So we hold our workshops there, or we go to a facility and do a workshop and a tour. We also do what we call member field trips. So one of our most popular was actually going and visiting Maker's Mark. Who doesn't want to go and visit Maker's Mark Distillery and seeing all the wonderful things that they do? So that's a great learning opportunity for the members and for anyone. Our events, with the exception of the celebration, is open to everyone, and that's how we recruit. We just ask that the non-members pay a small fee, maybe like $5. So it's another benefit of being a Kentucky Excel member is, with the exception of the open house, the celebration, or grant funded events, they don't have to pay.
Very nice. We do a lot of the same things that you both have mentioned to promote our programs as well. We work with our Vosges office and our Virginia Manufacturers Association, and we attend events. You know, there are certain conferences that we attend, you know, when our members are hosting events, you know, they'll do like Earth Day events where they invite people in, or things like that. We attend those as well. And we have also struggled with the virtual ones where I understand no one really wants to go to a virtual booth. It's just not as exciting. One of the other things that we do, and we ask members to promote the program as well, which I think Marcia had mentioned. But one of the things that we do is having our own environmental management system. You know, we're a member of BEEF, and that means that having our own system, we train our all of DEQ gets trained on our EMS annually. We've got a agency-wide team. We have teams in each of our regional offices. So if people are familiar with what environmental management systems are across the agency, so that when they're permitting a facility or doing an inspection at a facility, it helps them recognize, oh wait, we have this voluntary program. And so they'll help point people to us as well. We also try and get in at some internal trainings where, you know, they're training groups of inspectors or just different places like that where we can let our DEQ, not our pollution prevention staff, but like all of DEQ know about these programs so that they can point people to us as well. That's something we found helpful. And I think, as Marcia mentioned, we definitely have some members who come to me and they're like, do they have these programs in other states? Like, where are you? Maybe. So I know I've had a few members who have asked questions like that we've been able to share information on. And the NPPR has been very helpful in like me knowing who to connect people to. But, all right, Lisa, do we have any other questions before we move on to the next topic? Or I guess, does anyone have anything to add on this topic before?
No, we don't have any other questions at this point. Go ahead and send your question in or raise a hand if you'd like to comment.
Does anyone in the audience have any other promotion and recruiting techniques that we haven't talked about or mentioned? Please feel free to jump in and share with everyone. I'm trying to watch to see if anyone's raising their hand. But yeah, please share if you have other things to add. Our next topic is on the future of our programs and how do you see your program transitioning to stay current? Please, audience members, feel free to jump in.
So I'll go first. So some of the things that we're seeing from our members that they want us to start looking at is doing greenhouse gas. How do they do those calculations? So we've already reached out to the Department of Energy to maybe partner with them. I'm sure we'll be working with our waste reduction partners. There's a couple other organizations here in North Carolina that we've worked with. One is Advanced Energy. They're the 50,001 ready grantee from the Department of Energy, I think, for all of the Southeast. As I mentioned, we have the North Carolina Manufacturers Alliance. They mentioned during our advisory board that they're seeing a lot more companies being interested in that ESG reporting. So I'm not sure whether that means we'll get more members or not. And Megan, I was impressed by your numbers. And just wondering if when you talk about this, how many of those 350 members have certified systems by outside entities? Because we've seen, especially with our municipal members, a pushback from them, pressures from the pandemic. Maybe they don't have a requirement. Why do they need to pay for an outside register and auditor to certify their system if we can do that functional equivalent? I mentioned Secretary Beiser. She's come in, she's had some ideas. I was listening intently to both of you. One of the things she had mentioned was, can we do like awards type of things? So, we had kicked around some ideas internally. We'll have to revisit that. Our members have asked for us to benchmark against other programs. So don't be surprised if you're on the call. If we reach out to you, we're going to hopefully use some of our P2 money this summer to have an intern to complete that benchmarking study. But really, the other thing is we're going to continue to push the areas in the grant, but look at those goals. So one of the things we wanted to create, and we're like mostly there, pandemic, we've been having such issues with ordering items. We wanted to do like an energy toolkit so that either we or our waste reduction partners can go out to a site and help them monitor their energy and figure out ways where they can keep saving energy. North Carolina, we have Executive Order 80, which is transitioning us to a more clean and renewable energy system. I think that's by, I can't remember the goal, whether that was 2030 or 2050. And then our legislature just passed landmark legislation with, you know, our biggest provider, which is Duke Progress Energy. I can't remember their name.
Just to comment on our third-party certified, only our highest level of the program has to be third-party certified. So that's our E4s, and I think it was about 20% of our members are E4s. Okay. And that third-party certification is definitely a hindrance, and that, you know, we've seen some E4s move to E3s because they can't pay for the third-party audit. There was a while ago where we know that some of the members have the 40-hour ISO auditor training. So we were trying to connect other members to help audit each other and serve that role. But they were very harsh with each other while they were, we did a few of them, and it was interesting. So I don't know, that's definitely something that we've seen as well. I know when we're an E3 member, as DEQ, and we did ask one of our members to help us with the review and kind of do the audit and the site visit, so that we weren't moving ourselves up in our own program. We wanted a little bit of an external review, but like that's something that I think would prevent or definitely be a difficulty in us getting to the next level. But yeah, that step, it does seem to be a struggle. And if you guys have any ideas on, how you're able to do that within your programs, we'd be happy to hear about them.
We've kicked around the same ideas. With a staff of one, it's hard for me to go out and certify all the members or do a third-party audit or site visit with everyone. So logistically, that is not feasible. We did also try pursuing creating a group of other members, like the master members that are qualified to do certification to go out and do third-party audits. And we were even talking about doing that in partnership with the Kentucky Association for Manufacturers here. But all that just logistically, it doesn't work for us at this time. The biggest thing that we're looking forward to is actually the compliance checks with this merger with enforcement. It's going to help me solidify a lot of things behind the scenes that members don't see. Like our compliance check, it's a 3-year history. I do an internal review, and then I asked each of the regulatory divisions to do the same thing. And then same thing with the enforcement division enforcement. The standard was no significant violations. Well, what we were noticing was that there were no significant violations of the members, but there was one member where they just had a lot of violations. When I did the math, they had more insignificant NOVs than all the other master members combined. It was an insignificant environmental spill. So moving forward, it will be nice actually working with enforcement to tweak what we look at and how we look at when we do compliance checks, and actually have a more standardized definition of what does significant violation mean. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just that the definition of significant, since it changes from like some media, like any NOV is significant, some it like changes a little bit, which is always very confusing for me as a non-regulatory staff. But I think like that last part of our definition of sustained compliance, which is just any other unwillingness, like that kind of captures the if there's a lot of little things. And I know that actually came up recently in one of our reviews, and they had been on a compliance hold for a while. So their regional director was involved, and he was actually the one who was like, they've come a long way. Because I'm looking in our database and I'm seeing all of these little things. And it's like, no, like they just asked us if we could do like training for all of their staff. They came to our office. So it was interesting to get his input on it, but
yeah, and so that's an interesting thing. I'm looking at them, and it's like I know as soon as they get a violation, they fix it right then. So they are very easy to work with. They are great people for the department to work with, great relations there. So it's like, what's the standard? What's the balance? How do you do this? So that's one thing. It'll be interesting. And then we're also talking about doing a type of corrective action planning, in which as we move with enforcement to work with them to develop corrective action plans for when we do identify members that are having compliance issues. Right now, we're still having the conversations if we want to do that for all the membership types or just the highest one, which has to have the compliance history check. So it's one of those, it'll be fun. It'll be interesting as we progress forward.
I was going to say on our program, we sort of have that low bar because we want our partners to come into the program, especially if they're having issues, and let us help them. But at the higher two levels, because we have that advisory board, our advisory board, it's mainly made out of stewards, that highest level. So they are very interested if folks have compliance issues. They're always looking to see how the corrective action was implemented, especially if they have an EMS. You know, is their system fixing the issue? I think when I was chatting with you guys when we're preparing for this, we also have something called an improvement opportunity period. So if the board doesn't feel that they've either gotten all the information that they need to renew somebody or to move them up, they'll be put on that improvement opportunity period, and they'll review in 6 months at the next meeting what that facility has done. Have they fixed the issues that they've had? So that's how we do it. And then we've had some staff changeovers. So we're reviewing right now our internal process for looking at the compliance history for our partners, since that's not reviewed on a 5-year period. So we're not doing that look back, and we found a facility that maybe we should have been looking at, you know, because on the face value, oh, they had one here, one there, but then when we had a reason to look back on a longer period, we were like, oh, but we don't have any reason to believe that, you know, as you said, Megan, they are getting better, but it's something that we just need to make sure that we're looking at.
Yeah, and historically, we've always done the compliance checks on a 3-year basis because it's 3 years, looking back 3 years. So just do it every 3 years. But this member was doing it in between the 3 years, and it was brought to our attention. So we're actually looking at doing the compliance check every year since membership is annual. And we changed to an annual membership back in 2016 because on the books in 2016, we had over 300, maybe around 400 members, but they were not reporting every year like they were supposed to. So actually reducing down to a 1-year membership increased the reporting that we were receiving from members, and then doing the Beacon Awards, since the reports are how you nominate yourself for the Beacon Awards, increased the actual quality of the reports that we were getting. And moving forward, we're actually narrowing down. We've created 30 very broad units of measurements in which members can report on. We're only asking them to do 3 of them, and then they can report on other things too. But historically, it's like, hey, throw a metric on here. I don't care what it is. I want it on the report. So actually narrowing down and giving them some standards or a list to pick from, I'm hoping will actually increase our reporting to EPA, so increase and make it easier on the members with their reporting to us. So we'll see how that works next year.
Yeah, so we require that annual report. If something happens, you can ask to go on hold for a year. But if you don't submit the annual report, then we ask you to leave the program.
Yeah, see, now I'm asking members, I don't care if the goal was completed or the project was completed, just explain, you know, COVID happened. We were planning to do an Earth Day event. Hey, just submit a report.
That's how ours works too. You know, it doesn't have to go in the right direction, or, you know, they don't have to complete it within that year, but they do have to submit the report. And we do only do the compliance checks every 3 years, or like on the renewal process, but and Keith, feel free to jump in if I'm misrepresenting this, but we send our regional offices the list of members in their region quarterly, I think. And part of that is sometimes there's some compliance holds that, we're just making sure that they're aware that they have to let us know when we can continue. But I think getting that list in front of our contact in the region helps sometimes, where when they see if there's a compliance issue, they'll let us know. Generally, it doesn't rise to the level that it would need to be addressed, but it is just nice to know that that's happening. And just for our program, as an agency, one of the things in our current strategic plan is, like how to address climate change within our programs, and addressing not just mitigation, which we do a lot of within these programs, but adaptation and resilience as well. And then environmental justice is also something that I think will be more incorporated into our upcoming, I think we'll have a new strategic plan coming out next year as an agency. So those are all things that we're looking to expand, at least in the narrative section right now, the types of questions that we're asking and seeing, benchlining or benchmarking where our members fall in that. And it's a lot of what you guys have said as well. They're very interested in reducing their greenhouse gases. And so that's already in line with what they're working to do. But those are some areas that we're looking at as well right now. Does anyone in the audience have anything to add? Do we have any other questions listed? I think we have one more discussion topic, and we have 7 minutes.
No other questions right now.
Great. Well, we had our last question was member engagement, and I think we've touched on this as we've gone through some of your discussion, but how do you engage with your members?
So our biggest thing is our coaches making sure that they're reaching out and touching base with our members. We've got a couple easy ways to do that, around our annual reports, that listserv that we do, that's always a great way to engage. We also find we have, a program manager, that's Angela Barger. A lot of times they'll reach out to her instead of their coach. So we just make sure we circle back with their coach. And it's been hard. We were Don, who's on our staff, he was reaching out to some of his members, and they're like, all right, enough of this virtual stuff. We're ready to go. Let everybody know we want to see people. And we're like, okay. But not all of our members are to that point. We do change up coaches, so that's another way we'll introduce a new coach and ask to go out there, and a lot of times that's another way we engage with them. We'll go out and we'll see something, we'll say, oh hey, our waste reduction folks can maybe help you with this, or maybe you need to talk to our recycling staff, and they could give you some ideas about different vendors, or they're actively recruiting different recycling businesses into the state. So a couple of years ago, we were waiting for a new wood processor to come on board as an outlet for pallets and some of that hard to recycle waste wood. So I think that's about it. I can't think of any other engagement ideas that we do. But a lot of it is member to member. And then we also engage with them through their membership on our advisory board. So that's always another good way, because they're very, very engaged.
Do you think your members who are on the advisory board, what type of commitment is that for the members?
So it's twice a year the board meets, and they commit to reviewing the report. So it really depends. During the pandemic, I think we had 3 renewals in the spring and maybe 1 or 2 in the fall, but next year, apparently it was a banner year 5 years ago. So just in the spring, we've got 7 members that are going to get renewed. So we have to do those site visits, write up the reports, do presentations. So it really varies based on what members are coming up for renewal or what new member applications we have. So those vary. We just had our newest steward move up from a rising steward. In 2019, we had 2. We're hearing we may get 1 application next spring, so it just varies. But overall new members, we had more new members in 2019 and 2020 than we've had before. Because I've been involved from an EMS auditing standpoint, because way back when I came from a facility that had a 14,001 system, so that's how I got my foot in the door of ESI. But I mean, that changes. We also lose members. We've lost a bunch of members here recently because their facilities have been closed by their companies. We've had some consolidation of stewards. So if it's multiple locations, so one of our municipalities, we recertified their wastewater division instead of having each individual wastewater treatment plant and their land application site be members. So in our program, if you're a partner, you can do 1 report for multiple facilities. So we have all of the Martin Marietta sites in the state. So that's actually 50 sites, but they only submit 1 report. But as you move up, we require usually just an individual site to do that reporting, unless we've allowed you because you have the same management structure, you have the same EMS to combine.
We do something similar. Robin, do you have anything else to add for member engagement?
A lot of the way that historically that we've done is actually through our events and stuff. We also do facilitated compliance assistance if they need any help. So a lot of times they'll reach out to us for that. And then one benefit of being the highest level of member is expedited permitting. So they come to us when they need that. But we haven't as much engagement as normal with COVID. I do, of course, the monthly newsletter, a quarterly update letter that I email out to them, and then I poll the members regularly to see what their interests are, topics or events, or how to proceed. We don't have an advisory committee, so that's how we kind of hear from the members. And then you always have those members that are just more engaged, and they will email you routinely just to check up to see, hey, are you still alive? I haven't heard from you. I miss you. That type of. And then you got to hug them virtually. I missed you too. That type of thing. So moving forward, we're actually trying to develop a Teams channel specifically for the members. I polled them to see if that was something they're interested in. Some of them were like, yes. And then some were like, I'm not responding. And then the others like, we're not allowed to due to IT. So we will see how that works next year. And then of course, in order to do that, you have to go through and ask everyone if they would like to participate, get their emails. And one thing that we're going to be doing with the new memberships levels is actually allowing not just having a point of contact for the member, but 3 networking point of contacts. So those are people if they would like to join the Teams channel to network and communicate amongst each other more so. And then we'll see how the Teams networking channel.
I'd be very interested to hear and how that goes.
Well, I'll keep you posted. Right now it hasn't happened, so this is next year. If life goes the way I'd like it to, that's the plan. We've also talked about doing things like a leadership academy, so it'd be an LMS type thing, but we'll see how that once again pans out.
All right, well, we are just about at 4:30 now. Trying to get to the last slide here. I want to thank both Marcia and Robin very much for participating today. I hope everyone learned as much as I did and is just as energized to go back and either, I guess we had from the beginning, people just starting programs or some people with more mature programs, but I feel energized to improve the program that we have. I also wanted to do a shout out to congratulate our MVP2 winners and invite you all to the next P2U, which should be in either December or January. So look for that. There'll also be a in the newsletter coming out, look for an opportunity to let us know what other topics you would like for P2U events. And thank you very much for joining us today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.